Hey friend, welcome to Red Hot Mindset. Thank you for tuning in today with me. I want to know that I appreciate you and I believe in you. Today's guest has such a powerful story of overcoming much loss and having victory over it, choosing to find the positive in her circumstances and to find joy in the journey. This episode is a continuation of the 2020 Boston Marathon qualifying mama conversations that I have loved doing. 2020 was a year like no other, but Jen Hansen had some devastation in 2019 leading up to this unpredictable year. I'm thankful she was willing to share with us some of that time and how she made it through. I think it will be an encouragement for you today, just like it was for me. I found myself getting emotional right along with her as she poured out her heart for us. Jennifer Hansen loves God, her husband, their 4 kids, and their dog, Jax. She also really loves to run. She's been blessed to be a stay-at-home mom for the past 16 years. Their children are ages 17, 15, 12, and 11, and you will often find her in a Suburban, driving their kids to their sports and activities. She's their biggest fan and loves to watch them compete on game day or meet day. She also enjoys working alongside her husband in a few areas of their distribution company. Running has become what Jen chooses to do with her free time. The run is her place to pray, reflect, plan her day, even socialize, and just become a better version of herself. Are you ready to dive in? Let's chat. Hey Jen, welcome to Red Hot Mindset. I am so glad you're here with us today. I'm so excited to talk about running, one of my favorite things.
Thanks for having me, Gabe. I just feel so blessed that you are giving me this opportunity because I also love to talk about running.
Yes, I know. And I love how we got connected because I interviewed Jen Bergstrom a while back, I think in August or July, one of those 2 time frames. And we had such a great conversation and she talked all about her soul sisters. So I feel like I already knew you kind of. So I love that she connected you to come chat with me here because I'm excited to hear your side of the story, how you got into running, how you qualified for Boston, and all the good things. But before we get started, I want you just to share a little bit about you and your family, where you come from, and all those good things.
Okay. Well, I am a stay-at-home mom of 4 kids who are very active and busy. My husband is also busy. He has his own company that he started in the last couple years here, so he has a lot on his plate, and I try to help him as much as I can with that as well. So a lot of times you'll find me in my car driving around Monticello, Minnesota, getting my kids to all their activities and their sporting events. I am definitely their number one fan, and it is a passion of mine to see them compete and do what they love to do. So that is a huge part of my life, and what I do is take care of my family. But I also love to run, and that's the time that I have my free time. I've decided that running just makes me a better person, and so that's what I choose to do with my free time and how I like to start my day.
I love it. I love it. And your kids are a little older. You have teenagers, middle schoolers, elementary too. Do you have one elementary?
Yes, I have one left in elementary.
Okay.
And then I also have a middle schooler, and then I have 2 this year in high school. I have a junior and a freshman. So, and they all do different things. My son is a runner and a swimmer. My oldest daughter plays hockey and soccer. My middle school daughter is in gymnastics and soccer. And then my youngest, she plays soccer, and she just decided she's going to give basketball a try this year. So, we are running in all different directions, and it keeps us on our toes. That's for sure.
I can imagine. I know that's one of the things that you had mentioned is that sometimes one of the struggles is the fact that you have so much going on and so many different activities to get to. What does your day, what does your week look like with running kids around? I can imagine because mine are you mostly in the same sport, so they have the same time, and it's really easy. But when you have even in the same sport, like if they're both in soccer, they're different times, So what does that normally look like for you?
Well, I'm very blessed that my husband is so involved and so helpful, and us owning our own business does definitely help. It gives him some flexibility to help out. But there are often times when I am everything is down to the second to make it all work. One person needs to be dropped off at a certain time for soccer, and then the other person is over in a town 10 miles away, and she needs to be dropped off at the exact same time. And it's like, how do you do that? How do you be in two places at one time?
Right.
So my kids have definitely learned to be patient, through that. And we make it work. It's not relaxing. It's definitely a challenge to make it all work, but we do make it work. And the kids do appreciate that as well. So
Yeah, I love that. I love that you can be so involved too. Because that's the one thing I want to be, that my kid's number one cheerleader too. I want to be there at all the things, and not practices. Practices, I'm like, I could care less, but I want to see them in action and see what they're learning and how they're growing. And I love that you're able to do that too. Now, when it comes to your schedule, when do you run? Do you get up early? Do you run while they're in
well,
school?
yes, I typically run when they're in school, and a lot of that has to do with I don't have a treadmill at home, so I do a majority of my running outside. And so it's just, sometimes I like it when the sun is out. I don't like to go out in the dark necessarily unless I'm meeting a friend. And that's a good flow for our day is get up, get the kids ready. And my elementary student this year is in school every day. So once I get her to school, then I typically will have my running clothes on and I can go out for my daily run. I try to run about 5 days a week. And that's how I like to start my day. I like to just kind of, I start my day off with a prayer on the run, and then think about, okay, what do I have to do today? How is that all going to work? How am I going to fit it all in?
Mm-hmm.
And where I need to be at each certain time. And so my day flows better when I start it that way. So I usually don't like to wait until the afternoon to get that run in. I like to just make that a priority and get that taken care of right away in the morning.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm totally
Not too early.
not too early. I know. I am not a night run. Like, I don't run in the dark either. I have in the past. But it is a little bit unnerving because of, everything going on in the world and just safety measures. And also, safety measures because you can't see what's on the ground, especially in the winter in Minnesota.
Right. Right.
I haven't run out in Colorado yet. I probably, by the time this podcast is gone, I've had a wonderful winter running outside, but I'm like you, I don't have a treadmill. I got to do it outside. And, but I think it's really neat to start the morning. And I know you had said you kind of start with a prayer. And I honestly feel like it's an extension to my quiet time because I get up early before I bring the boys to gymnastics and everywhere they got to go. And I get to have my quiet time and read the word and all of these things and journal. But then I feel like I really hear God when I'm running. Like, I really feel like that's my time, though I am listening to podcasts or running with friends and stuff, but it is the time where I feel like I have revelations or I just really hear from him. Do you ever feel like that when you're running?
Yeah, it's like, like all of a sudden something will be weighing on me, for a time, and then I'll be on a run, and it comes together, and it's like, oh wow, that that's what you're trying to teach me, or that's what you're trying to tell me, or how you want me to handle a particular situation. So absolutely, 100%, because there aren't distractions, and if you are listening to a podcast or music, you can turn that off. And you're just out there in nature and in the world, that he created. And yes, he speaks much clearer out there on my run. So
yeah, I love it.
I agree with you.
It's one of my favorite things about running. And I want to talk about kind of how you got into running in the first place too, and why you do it. So this is a good segment into it. So what got you into it? Have you always been a runner? Did you start, I think maybe when you were having kids, I think you started.
Yeah. So I always had like a desire to run, but I just never did it. I just never joined the cross country team in high school. I just, I was involved in other sports though, but there was just something about running that I was always drawn to. And then I saw that one of my soul sisters, Sherry, who is Jenny Bergstrom's sister-in-law, was going to start running, and she was going to run a 5K, and I just thought, that is so cool. I've always wanted to do something like that. So, but I was expecting a baby at the time, so I was like, this isn't the time to start. But then after I had Braylon, my youngest, it was probably winter of 2010.
Okay.
I asked Sherry if I could, train for the March Madness 5K, the little local 5K in town, if I could train with her for that. And of course, that was something she was excited about as well. And we just became soul sisters. We ran together. We supported each other as far as watching each other's kids, so the other one could go out and run. And so it was shortly after having my fourth baby that I actually finally put into action something that I had desired to do for such a long time in my life. And, like you said, your running is an extension of your quiet time. And that's what I think it became for me. Like, being a stay-at-home mom is kind of chaos sometimes, especially when the kids are little and they're not at school. And so it was just a nice quiet time for me to be able to just regroup. And back then too, it also helped me to plan my days out, even though I was running much shorter distances then, because we started out so at such short distance, with the 5K. So we were running just a few miles at a time, and gradually working our way up, obviously, to marathoning. So
yeah,
that's how I got started.
Okay.
Is a good influence by my friend Sherry.
I love it. I love those influences. It's good peer pressure, right?
Yes, good peer pressure.
Association. Association is so important, but I like that good peer pressure. Like, you can do that. I know you can. And kind of just pushing you into that. And I love that you've always kind of desired it, but maybe just didn't really know how to get it in or how to start. And then you had that friend who was like, I'll do it with you. And I think that's really important to have. Now, it took you a while before you ran your first marathon. I think you've been running for about 5 years. Does that sound about right?
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah. What made you decide to get on the bandwagon? Was it something you just wanted to do something you've kind of thought about for a long time?
Well, again, it was our soul sister Sherry that said, you know what, I'm signing up. I think she had actually already signed up and registered for the Twin Cities Marathon in 2015. And she's like, I'd really like you to come and do this with me. And I was just so impressed that she had the courage to do something like that, all on her own. Now, we had ran several 5Ks, 10Ks. We had done, I'm not sure how many half marathons by that point, but we had experienced up to like the half marathon, which I thought was an incredible amount of mileage. And so when she came to me, I was so impressed with the fact that she just, was so positive that she could accomplish finishing a marathon. And so I'm sure I thought about it for a while, because that's what I do. I don't make a quick decision. And but ultimately, in the end, I decided to take the plunge and register for that marathon with her. And then it was in that time that I met or got closer to Jenny Bergstrom, who is Sherry's sister-in-law. And so we had ran a few smaller distance races together, but we really bonded, through that marathon experience. And that's where we, I think, became soul sisters, because it's pretty special to complete your first marathon. And then to have two strong women, by your side doing that is pretty cool. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, I love it. And I think for those who are runners will understand this, but if you're not a runner listening to this, there's something special about that bond, like your BRFs, your best running friends or whatnot, because they just get you in a different way, because running is such a part of our lives. It's not our life. Like I always say, running is not my life. If that's my life, then I have an idol, right? But it is a part of my life, and it makes me who I am. and it helps me in all other areas of my life. And so there's just something special about it. And most people don't really understand it because what we do seems kind of crazy. I mean, we run outside in negative weather. We train for these marathons that by the end we don't feel good. You know, it's like torture during it. We do all these training runs and we do just a lot of things as runners. And so finding that tight knit group of people, the few friends that get you, that love running too, it's really special. And that's what you found in your soul sisters.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
It, it's very special. Because like you said, it isn't our life. But it makes us, a better version of ourselves.
Hmm.
And, and then those two strong women in my life are just there to support me. And, anytime that I'm doubting myself or doubting what I'm doing, that's who I go to bounce, ideas off of and to ask advice. And so,
Hmm.
yep, very special relationship for sure.
Yeah.
And yep.
I love it. So this marathon, 2015, it was the Twin Cities Marathon, which is one of the
Yeah.
biggest in Minnesota. Beautiful urban marathon. I think fall in Minnesota is the best time to run, even though it's unpredictable what the weather is going to be like. It could be beautiful, it could be, but it's got a chill and it's good. So you finish. What was it like
Yes.
for you to finish? Were you like
Oh,
sold? What?
it was so amazing. I throughout the entire marathon, I just had so much fun. It was like one of the most fun social events I had ever been to. Like that's when I knew I would be doing this again, is when I didn't ever not like it. Like I didn't hit a wall. I didn't, want to be done. I wanted to finish that marathon, and I did it with a smile on my face. I was so happy. I never felt, um, because I've ran 8 marathons and I've had some other experiences, but in my very first, it was just 100% all positive. And finishing it, I knew I would run another one. I couldn't wait for the next one to come along. So,
I
and
love it.
I was so proud of, um, my soul sisters for also completing it and working so hard to finish that first marathon. So I was excited for what the future held for us.
Yeah. Was it their first marathon too? So you all did it together as your first?
Yes. Yes.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much
And then
so.
this idea of qualifying for the Boston Marathon comes into play. I know you all have it, so I want to hear a little bit about when did you think maybe you wanted to try for that? When did it become special for you?
Well, for me, I was kind of winging this whole first marathon experience as well. Like I didn't really know much about marathoning at all,
Mhm.
except that I had to run 26.2 miles. I mean, that was, I
Right.
knew that much. Um, so I'm actually on the course running my very first marathon, Twin Cities Marathon of 2015. And I overhear a couple other girls talking about the fact that their friend was trying to BQ that day and what pace, um, this friend of theirs needed to be at. And I just thought, what, like, so I'm on pace to BQ. Well, at the time I didn't understand the different age cutoffs and all
Mhm.
those details, but I guarantee you that Sherry and Jenny probably both knew that information. But that was the where the idea sparked for me, was like halfway through my first full marathon. I was like, so I'm actually doing this challenging, hard thing right now, and I'm doing a pretty nice job of it if I'm, on the pace of someone who's going to BQ. There was a lot of race left, and I don't know if she went on to BQ. She probably did. But that's where the idea was born, was actually in my first marathon.
I love it. And then how did it become a bigger idea? How did it become kind of a drive for you?
Well, I like to achieve a goal. And so, that idea was born. I loved my marathon experience. And so naturally, I then progressed to saying, okay, the next time I run, I want to have that in mind with my training. I want to have that goal set, and I want my training to then line up with that. So then the next race that I ran was marathon was the Lake Wobegon Marathon in 2017. And I trained for that with Sherry, but at the time I was still really naive and, didn't really understand how you needed to mix in some slow runs and some speed work. And, I just thought miles were miles.
Mm-hmm.
And so although I was a little bit more conscious of the fact that I wanted to be Q, and at the time, I think my qualifying time back then was probably 3:45. So I had that in my mind, but it wasn't as detailed as it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and ran the Lake Wobegon Marathon that year, and I did finish with a better time. I got a PR on that marathon, but I was off. I was like a good 8 minutes off or 7 minutes off of a BQ, but I was okay with it. I knew that I could try again, and that I was going to keep doing this because I loved it that much. Mm-hmm. So from there, we then, the three of us, Sherry, Jenny, and myself, ran the Mankato Marathon in the fall of 2017, and had maybe a little bit better training plan, and came in and finished. I mean, it was a very challenging course. Mm-hmm. I personally finished just about 8 seconds shy of a PR. So, but still off of the BQ, obviously. So at that point, then I realized, I have to do something different if I want to get a different result. I've ran 3 marathons; they're all within, seconds virtually of each other. If I want to get a different result, I have to do something. I have to do something different in my training. I actually found a plan that involved some speed work and some tempo runs and long runs and cross training, which I chose to do swimming. And that was for the Fargo Marathon in 2018. And that's where I finally saw a great decrease in my time. So I BQ'd. I ran that marathon in 3 hours, 43 minutes and 58 seconds. So I was so excited to then have the opportunity to say that I BQ'd and figure out then what's all involved with registering for the Boston Marathon. Because there's so much, just because you BQ doesn't mean you're going to get to go out and run in Boston.
Right.
And it was a learning process. I mean, it took me all these years to learn all this information. So
yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you just kept going. Like, you learned from each marathon. I think that's something that's really special. We learn from each one. And sometimes we feel like we're going to have the best one ever and it becomes our worst one, but we learn from it. I've had those many times. And
absolutely.
So, and I know you went on to work toward it. Now, did you try to get into Boston for 2019?
I did. So that was that Fargo was in the spring mm-hmm. of 2018. And so then registration for Boston opened up in September for then the 2019 Boston Marathon. And so I registered then. I'm just trying to think back, but I think it was like week 2 of registration because of where my time fell with, with all the people who qualified with like 10-minute buffers or, Mm-hmm. So I was, I didn't get in. I went through the registration process. I didn't think I would get in. So when I, got the email saying, we're sorry to inform you, but you were not accepted, I wasn't surprised. It just fueled me, to go out and try it again. Uh, because in that little bit of time between the registration and then, waiting for that email to come in to see if I was accepted, I realized how bad I really wanted to go out to Boston and run the marathon. So now I had met one goal of actually BQing, but now I've got another goal, and that's I need to be fast enough to be able to actually get accepted so I can go out and run the course in Boston, the historic course in Boston.
Yes. Yes. Well, and a lot of things came into play because I think that's the year that it's like thousands of people were turned away, right? Because there was like a 5-minute buffer you needed at
Yes.
that year. And then they changed the qualification time.
Right. So they did, and that reminds me, Gabe. I kind of forgot about this, but so that was in April of 2018 that I qualified up in Fargo, and then took a little bit of time off, or easy maintaining, before I picked up training again for the 2018 Twin Cities Marathon in October. So I want to say a week before we ran that race in October of 2018, Boston, the BAA changed their cutoff time, and so it now became a 3 hours and 40 minutes that I needed to have to qualify to BQ. And I was a little scared because I had been training and thinking that I needed a 3:45. So 5 minutes it's a big deal. It scared me a little. So I spent a lot of time leading up in the week leading up to that marathon, um, talking myself into the fact that I did put the work in, and convincing myself that I could actually do this, that I could BQ, even though they made it 5 minutes harder. So it was a lot of conversations with myself on those morning runs, and just convincing myself that I did put the work in. I can do this. I've come very close, before, up in Fargo, and I've worked even harder this next training cycle, and it is possible. And so I ran my PR that day, in October of 2018 at the Twin Cities Marathon. I ran a 3 hour, 37-minute and 28-second marathon, and that gave me my second BQ. And then, but it was October of 2018. I had to wait 11 months to register for Boston at that time.
Did that make you nervous? Like, because I'm sure you're anticipating it. You have a decent buffer, but you don't know because of what happened the year before. Was the waiting really hard? Because it was almost a year of waiting.
Yeah. It was hard, but I was able to remain, calm and not get too excited, until, September rolled around. And then it was like all the excitement, and you're, like anytime you have a free, relaxing moment, your mind automatically goes to Boston Marathon. Am I going to get in? Is it fast enough? What's going to happen? So I did register, and I think I got in then by a few minutes. It was still pretty close, even though they tightened the qualifying times. It was still, I still kind of squeaked in. I feel like.
I squeaked in, but so good measure.
I got in, and that. Yeah. What's that?
You had a decent buffer, I think, with because you essentially cut almost 7 minutes off what your qualification would have been if it were the 3:45. So yes. It's pretty cool that you not only hit the BQ, which was 5 minutes faster than it was supposed to be, but you also had a good buffer a couple minute buffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So what was your initial feeling?
That was, well, I was extremely excited, and it was almost like surreal. And then I started to put a lot of pressure on myself, because I've actually, looking back, I was like, I was really intimidated by the Boston course. Like, I just was trying to soak up all this information, trying to learn everything I could about it, and make sure that I was training properly for the hills. And someone told me, don't forget about the downhill. You're going to want to, that you do some training for that, the first part of the first half of the marathon, which is going to be a lot of downhill, because you want your legs fresh for the Newton Hills. So I really became, I was really intimidated by it, but it fueled me. I went out and I worked hard every day. I showed up every single day to train for Boston. And I, I just, it's hard to put into words like how I felt when then we were announced, it was announced to us in March that, it wasn't going to happen. It was kind of amongst a lot of other disappointments for my kids and all their sporting events that they had worked so hard for a year, and the fear that was going on with the pandemic situation. And it was like, what could happen next? And it was the news that the Boston Marathon was then going to be postponed at the time. And my kids were then disappointed too, because that was going to be a family trip. We were going to bring all the kids out and experience Boston and the marathon and just have a nice little family vacation.
Yes.
So I probably different further question here than what we were originally talking about, but
no, it's good. It's good, because I want to talk about that a little bit too.
Okay.
I felt the same. I mean, the whole point of us going to Boston, I needed to experience it one more time, because I went to Boston with these plans to qualify at Boston, and that was, you gotta go to experience it. Like, first time Boston, you gotta experience it. And I just wanted to go back, but I wanted to bring the kids this time and do the family vacation and do the history. Like, there's so much history there, and just have that time. And it was almost more disappointing for me that I didn't get to share in that experience with my kids than it was for me not to be able to run. Because at that point I was coming off an injury still. Like, that breaking your ankle, it takes a long time. It's so frustrating. But I knew I was only going to be running it, like probably walking more than running at that point. So it wasn't going to be a race to me. It was just going to be special because of what it meant. And so I can definitely see how disappointing that is, probably not only for you, but I'm sure the kids were just so excited to be able to go experience it with you.
Yes, they were excited for, we had like a little countdown calendar going, how many days till the family vacation. And I had a friend that was going to come out with my sister, and then and my sister's boyfriend. So that was confirmed. I knew they were coming as well. And I have a sister that I just had this feeling that, she spur of the moment would maybe show up. So I kind of had that in my gut that my other sister would be out there. Well, come to find out, my mom was actually going to be traveling out with my other sister, and they were going to surprise me out there. Oh. So, so it was my family was a little my kids and my husband were a little disappointed that they didn't get that trip. And then beyond that, it was also my siblings and my mom that didn't, get that opportunity either this year. But I'm positive that it's going to happen someday for us all. We'll get to be out there.
Oh, absolutely. And you definitely deserve to get out there to see it and to run it live and have that experience. This year has been like none other, right? None of us really understood what was going to happen next. We still kind of it's all
Mm-mm.
unpredictable, everything. But I know that 2019 was an uneasy year for you as well.
Yes.
So do you mind sharing just a little bit? Because I feel like going through, so you qualified for Boston in 2018. You had that whole year, but 2019 is a little unsettling with all the loss that you've experienced. And then 2020, which is like a different kind of loss, right? And so it's like
Right.
loss after loss after loss. And tell me, share a little bit about it and tell us a little bit about how it affected your training. Was it like, did you feel like running, or was it kind of like running became an escape for you, or how did you experience running in that time?
Yeah. So, so like I was on the top of the world in 2000, the fall of 2018. I qualified for Boston, and I was pretty hopeful. Like you said, it was a 7 minute ish, buffer kind of in a way. Um, and so I was on top of the world. And then in the winter of 2019, so a few months later, my grandma wasn't doing well. My grandparents had just recently moved off the family farm that they had been on and raised their family, and the farm was so very special to us.
Mm.
Home, and they actually had been there for maybe a little over a year, but my grandma was not doing well. Her health was really starting to slip, um, and we did lose her in February of 2019. uh, but I had a special moment with her the last visit that I got to go out and see her. She wasn't awake. She was just laying in her bed. Um, but I went over and I told her, I'm sorry, I'm going to cry. I told her something that one of my dear best friends uh, had said to me when I shared with her that I was losing my grandma, and she said, "Oh, grandmas are so special. Grandparents are so special." And it's hard to what do you say to your grandma when she's laying there and you're not making eye contact because her eyes are closed, but I knew she could hear me, and I just told her how special she was, and I said, grandmas are so special. And growing up and being on the farm, out by the farm, and being able to come and visit you and spend so much time with you out in your kitchen, in your yellow kitchen. Um, it's so very special to me, grandma. And you're just the best. And I just went on and I was just telling her how special she was to me in my life. And a little tear rolled out of the corner of her eye. And I knew, I was like, she can hear me and she knows, and she's telling me, um, she's trying to tell me that she loves me, and that that everything's going to be okay. And so we lost her in the winter. Then um, in July, my aunt and uncle were on their way to visit my grandpa and go back to their hometown and take part in some summer uh, festivities that were going on in the town. And they were struck by a distracted driver, and my uncle was killed instantly, and my aunt was airlifted, and she didn't survive the car accident. And it was something that it was just it was really hard on us. I mean, we are just a really close knit family. This is my mom's siblings and my mom's mom, um, and they're just a really tight family. So it has left a hole in our hearts that just it can't be filled. It's just that sudden loss is very, very painful. And 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 so we're all heartbroken. And then if in November my grandpa starts to just have some health issues. He's at this point he's 100 years old. We did get to celebrate his 100th birthday party in August.
Awesome.
And I think that's kind of what he waited for. He was like, I'm going to have one last hurrah. And in November, we lost my grandpa, and that was that was hard too, because he's the pillar of the family, he's the strong superhero, that we just all crowd around the kitchen table and listen to his stories. And so that was super hard too. And then the next week, 1 week later, after saying goodbye to my grandpa, at his funeral, 1 week later, we had to say goodbye to my dad's brother, who lost his battle with cancer. And it's unreal to lose all those key important people so close together, and it was like you said, it was like, what could happen next? How could 2020 be, how could it not be better, and so we were excited for a new year, and then then the pandemic happened, and it's just, and that's been hard for everybody, that's been a challenge for everyone. And so you had asked, okay, so how did that affect my training? How did losing all those people, losing them here on earth, I mean, their souls are journeying to heaven, and I'm very strong in my faith, and I know that they're all in a better place, but that doesn't mean I don't miss them dearly. But they did fuel my commitment to being the best version of myself with the time that I have here on this earth. And I remember back in the winter, shortly after my grandma passed, I didn't want to get up in the middle of the cold winter and go out and run in frozen Minnesota. And I heard my grandma say, "Jenny girl, it's what you do." And so that was kind of what got me out of bed every morning. She just said, "Jenny girl, it's what you do. Like, don't think anymore about this. You do what you do, and you go out there and start your day the way that you're supposed to, with your run, and keep working and chipping away, to achieve your goals." So, and I just want to share with you, my aunt and uncle who were killed in the car accident, they were at my Fargo marathon. They lived in Fargo, and they were there for my first BQ. Wow. And I am so thankful for that weekend that we had with them. And we just have some really special memories from that. And I'm so thankful that we had that time together. And so that also fueled my ability to just keep going. Yeah. The fact that they saw me do this. They saw me do this one time, and now they're watching me from above, and I have to get out and do this for them. So
yeah, that is such a special moment that you shared with them.
Oh,
yeah. And I'm so thankful we have hope, in a eternity, yes, and in a God who's bigger. Like that, I think without that, how much more painful all these things would be that we experience. I think no matter what, it's painful, but I love that we have hope. And I remember, right, actually, I had a similar experience. You're making me emotional.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I had a similar experience. I ran grandma's half marathon. I think this was 2013. And instead of finding a hotel, I remembered my uncle lived up there, and I don't see him all that often. So I thought, let's just see if we can stay with them. And I had I think I had both my boys there. Two of my two oldest, they were really young. One was, okay, I don't even know how old he was. 2013. He must have been, let's see, 2000. He must have been 4. So 4 and like 6 or something. So they actually could kind of remember this, but we got to spend the weekend with my Uncle Joe and his wife, Loretta, my Aunt Loretta. And they, and they were like, "You absolutely are going to come here, and we will take your kids while you run." And it was just really special time. And then not even the week later, my Uncle Joe died of heart attack. And I just think about it going, how selfish it would have been for me
to have been in a hotel and not even to go and visited them, you know?
Right.
So it's just like those
Right.
special moments. And it's like running was a special moment that connected us at that point, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like
Yes.
the Fargo Marathon. It reminds me of the Fargo Marathon where you had that special connection. It was because of your running, you know?
Yes. Yep. And how cool is it that you that just played out that way, that you could stay with him and have that time, because I just feel like, obvious to me, it's obvious God had a hand in that.
Yeah.
And I think that we can do all the planning we want. And maybe if you're anything like me, like a night in a hotel before the race is kind of attractive because you can count on, hopefully getting a good night's sleep. It's quiet. There's not going to be interruptions. No one,
Yep, exactly.
lots of benefits to that.
Mhm.
For some reason you were able to, think about, or maybe you didn't think about it, but you ended up at your aunt and uncle's house and you have those memories.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it.
Special moments. So
Hmm.
it's it's hard dealing with that loss. And I do love that we have something that not that we can escape to, but something that we can find hope while we're doing it. Like I feel like running, you just can have that and you have that special time with God who can like be our hope giver and our console the one who's consoling us and wrapping us in his arms and things like that. So
Yep.
I love that you kept pursuing it and didn't just stop, because I feel like sometimes we just stop. And obviously our loved ones wouldn't want that. They want us to keep
Right.
going and to pursue the passions that are on our hearts.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And that's exactly what, when I heard my grandma saying, Jenny girl, this is what you do. That's what she was telling me is I go out and do what you always do and do it to the best of your ability. So that encouragement,
Yeah. Yeah. And 2020 comes and it's like, it's new beginnings. What could go
Right.
wrong? I think a lot of us,
Yeah.
that was one of my words is new beginnings or vision, and all that. And it's like, well, I didn't have a vision for this. And,
Right. Exactly.
and so kind of, we talked a little bit about the disappointment and when you found out it was canceled. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Tell me a little bit about, did you decide to run the virtual? Did you decide I'm going to make this special for me? Like, how did you do that? How did you get through 2020? I mean, coming from a year, 2019 as a year of loss, and then 2020 essentially being a new year of loss. Like, how did you get through that?
Well, so I did decide to run the virtual. I was disappointed and sad, but I also kind of expected it to happen. Just for them, I just figured there was no way that they could actually hold the Boston Marathon when basically the world was shut down. Um, and I was out on a run with my husband. Who He doesn't run very often, but there's a challenge he does a couple times a year,
Yeah.
and it happened to be during that time. And so we were running, and he was just like, "Well, if you want to do the virtual, he said I could run some of it with you," because my big concern was, do I really want to run 26.2 miles in a non-race setting? And
Right.
I knew I had Jenny, that she would, if she chose to do it, that we could run this together. But where do you run that? It's like, where do you run without having to cross roads and to be safe? And that's so it was like, that was my uncertainty. And my husband just made it, he's like so calm, and he thinks about things so clearly. And he's just like, well, I'll run some of it with you, and why wouldn't you? And so I did decide that I wanted to be part of history too. The more I thought about it, I was like, well, this has never happened before. I want to be part of that, and I want to get that unicorn medal and
Yes. And run for
finisher's
the medal.
yep. And and I worked so hard for it. I want to get that medal. I worked hard. But so I decided to run the virtual, and I continued my training. And then an opportunity actually came up to go out to Spearfish, South Dakota,
Mhm.
in the end of August and run the leading ladies marathon out there, which is all downhill. I mean, I don't quote me on the exact numbers here, but it's like 2,500 of elevation loss.
Nice.
So I mean, it's downhill.
Mhm.
So I wanted to go out there with my soul sisters and experience that. That was not my day. That one was not my day. So we have more disappointment in 2020. But I had a talk with myself out there, and I said, because I was like, there was one point where I was like looking for a ride back to the finish line. I'm like, whose car could I hop in and get a ride back? And then I said, no, I talked to myself. I'm sure I'm sure God was telling me all this stuff. Like, you don't quit. When you start something, you finish it. And so I decided I needed to be myself. I was miserable. I didn't feel good from the beginning of that race. I like had side aches, and I just was exhausted. I didn't really sleep very well, and just it wasn't my day. And so I decided I needed to be myself. I needed myself to show through. I can't if I'm going to be myself, I need to slow down a little. I need to get these side aches under control. And also part of being myself is to finish this race, to not quit, to not give up, and to just enjoy the beauty. It was so beautiful out there. And I stopped. There was a lady on the course that pointed out like a mountain goat. And I stopped, and I think I took a picture of the mountain goat. I don't remember, but it's in my mind. I vividly remember this mountain goat. And it was just like, there was just little things like that. The bald eagle that flew over, the Smokey the Bear sign that said the temperature was so hot, and there was a pollen alert, and it was like a high risk for fire. I remember I took a picture of that. So I slowed down. I took it in. I decided I just needed to be myself and enjoy the race that I started out, and to actually finish it, to not quit and not give up. And so even though it was my slowest marathon time yet to this day, which floors me because I worked so hard training for Boston, I didn't think this one would be so difficult, but I finished it. And there's a lot of good that came from that marathon. And I am so thankful that I went out there with my soul sisters to run that.
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity. That was a real race in 2020.
Woohoo! Not very many of those.
Right. So very thankful I did that. And then 3 weeks later, I ran the Boston Virtual.
Okay.
And it was sort of a redemption. I knew it was a virtual setting, and I knew we chose a very challenging course that we were going to run 3 loops, almost 3 loops in Minneapolis around the Mississippi River. Okay. And it was sort of a redemption in that we wanted to enjoy that as well. And so we took it nice and slow for the first 2/3 of that race. Just a typical nice, easy run pace that we did. And then the final 6 miles, we decided to pick up the pace. And you know what? Surprise, surprise. I came in at 3 hours and 52 minutes, which is my, kind of my typical time outside a couple of times that I've BQ'd. So that must just be kind of my enjoyment marathon pace if you're going to enjoy it. So we made the best of it. We had some special shirts and headbands, and I ordered bibs that were like the Boston race bib with the colors and our unique numbers on there. So we wore those. Saw of Boston virtual runners out on that course in Minneapolis that day. Oh. So that was really fun to cheer them on, and to and to let them cheer us on too. We had lots of smiles, lots of laughs, and just in pure enjoyment. So it was fun.
That's awesome. It's a way to make it special, and that you had
Mhm.
your soul sisters to run it with, which makes it probably
Yes,
all the more better. I
absolutely.
ran mine alone and in elevation.
I
That was
I
kind of
listened I listened to your podcast with that, and I love the fact that you finished it too, and you worked your butt off and did something different.
yeah, it was an experience. You might as well. You got to do something to make it memorable. And I
Yes.
chose to torture myself to make it memorable. I don't know. But I mean, the views were worth it. And just the experience itself was worth it. But I think there's something about finishing, especially when it feels tough and when you don't want to. I mean, that's what makes you who you are. Like you learn from it, you grow in it. And doing tough things like that is what grows you. And so, I love that you
Yes.
decided on that race that you weren't going to quit either. And like I said, after you BQ, a lot of times you have one of your worst races because they're going to happen because we can't control everything. We can only control our actions and our attitude, really. We can't control the other things, that come. And
Yeah.
so it's what we do with the things out of our control, how we react to them that makes all the difference. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you had the virtual 2020. Now I want to know, as we're kind of wrapping up here, why would have the 2020 Boston Marathon been a victory run for you?
Um, I think just well, like I said earlier, we were going to bring our family out and just have a big celebration. Um, it was all the years of working towards actually achieving that BQ and then being accepted into the race. So it was going to be a celebration. I back then, you know, um, in the winter of 2019, so what, only 9 months ago, I had this idea that I was going to go out to Boston and BQ at Boston because I thought that would be really cool. And I aged up. So I'm gaining 10, I'm gaining 10. So I thought, well, I'm gaining 10 minutes so I age up and I don't care by how much, but wouldn't it be cool to BQ on the Boston course? I mean, I know lots of really seasoned, spectacular runners do that. And I thought that would be cool. So that was going to be, a great, huge victory for me to try to achieve that out there.
Yeah. Well, and that would be kind of your
Yeah.
happy place where you're saying the 352, it would be kind of right around there, right? Just a little bit under.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Still
Yeah.
could be an enjoyable run for you.
So it is, yeah, maybe. So it is doable. Maybe someday that will happen for me. So
That's awesome. I love it. I love that goal. Too. Like I told you in the beginning, that's what my goal was. And now I want to go back and just experience it. But I didn't train right for it. Plus, that would have been a lot. The goal I had was lofty. So it was like, it wasn't just,
well,
it was like, let's drop 15 minutes.
well, and I want to go. I do want to tell you though. I also have changed Although someday I think that would be cool. If and when I do get to Boston, like the very first time, I actually have changed my mind because, like I told you way back when we started this conversation, Boston intimidated me to the point where I think I pushed myself, you know, super hard, and it scared me a little. And so now, if I do get the opportunity to go out there, I do want to enjoy it. I want to take it all in. I don't want all that pressure on myself.
Mhm.
But like you did just bring up, maybe that 350 is my happy place and I'll be able to do both. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. Just go with all that expectation. Train for it. I say have a goal that you're like, you have to have a time goal that you're training for in a way.
Yep.
Otherwise,
Yes.
you're going to go out there and you're going to run too fast or, something and
Right.
um so not enjoy it. But I think it would be awesome if you could do both.
Yeah, that would be cool. So
So my last question, I know we've kind of gone a little longer, but I could talk to you all day. We've had a great
I
conversation.
know, I've had so much fun.
I know. So we've talked a lot about loss, and this year we've had it in multiple facets. How would you encourage listeners today to just keep going after dealing with the types of losses? I mean, there's so many different ones, losing loved ones, losing jobs, losing hope, losing whatever. What has gotten you through yours?
Well, I think a big thing is being consistent, and the world can be very scary right now. We don't know when things will get back to normal, if they'll get back to the normal we're used to, what the new normal will be. But we have the ability to just stay consistent, do what we do, like those words I heard from my grandma, Jenny girl, it's what you do, show up every day, do the best that you can do. And I'm not just talking about training for a marathon, but do the things that you need to do each day, and do them to the best of your ability, so that at night you can reflect back and say, I did the best I could today. I didn't let fear win. I didn't let sadness win. I'm an overcomer, and I was able to be the best version of myself. And so I would just say, keep showing up and be consistent, and stay positive and have fun. Enjoy the journey, because this is a journey. Like, my journey isn't over now just because I do have this unicorn medal. My journey with running isn't over. Running makes me a better person. It makes me a better version of myself. And I need to enjoy that journey. I need to enjoy my leading ladies marathon with my slowest time. There are so many good things that came out of running that marathon and having that experience. So we have to stay positive and see the good in everything we do. There's a Bible verse, and Gabe, maybe I think it's out of James, where you need to count it all joy, even in those hardships. You need to find the joy.
Yes, count it all.
I wish I could tell you the exact verse right now, but I can't. But
yeah, I can't either. I know what you're talking about. I'm
Okay.
bad with verses. I have to write them down. I know the lingo, but I don't know the verse.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
James, it is James. I want to say 1:8, but I don't know if that's right. So don't quote me on that.
Yeah. But I think that's what it's all about, is, we are going to have some hurdles in our lives, but we got to find joy.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, that alone was worth our conversation, because I think it's so important for us to understand how to embrace the season we're in, and to remember that the season we're in isn't who we are. It's just where we are, and to count it all joy and to enjoy that journey of developing and growing and seeing where it goes. So I really appreciate that. Jen, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you had fun. It wasn't too scary. And I hope to see you at Boston sometime soon, if not in 2020, not 2020, but 2021. Someday we'll be there.
Someday. Yes. And we'll connect. But
Oh, this conversation was such a blessing for me today, and I hope it was for you too. Consider it joy. This stood out to me in our conversation, and as we were trying to figure out the actual passage number, I was close. But it's not James 1:8, it's James 1:2-4, and I want to share it with you today as we wrap up our time together. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I could have talked to Jen forever, and I know this conversation was slightly longer than normal, but I didn't want to leave any of it out. It was all so good. I hope you heard what you needed today. And if you are one experiencing any kind of loss, my prayer for you today is that you embrace the hope you have in our Heavenly Father and allow Him to comfort you and lead you on this journey called life. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to our next time. In all things, I pray that you just run your race. I believe in you.